Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pash On podcast. Let's get started with your host, Brian Pash.
Hi, this is Brian Pash, and welcome to another exciting podcast interview. I'm here with Amol Waishampayan, and he's the Chief Product Officer for Full Throttle AI. And we are going to get into the weeds, but not too in the weeds, about the opportunities of customer data management, first-party data. And I think we want to focus on what are some of the practical use cases that dealers can get excited about over, hey, I can email more or spend more money on Facebook. Amol, welcome to the show.
Hey, Brian, thanks for having me. I'm really excited.
So, Amol, you have been a pioneer. Full Throttle has been a pioneer on first-party data management. In fact, I think recently you've received your third patent in your unique approach to identifying an online shopper to a household and then being able to activate that data in new ways. So whether you called yourself a CDP back then, I know you were really focused on helping dealers manage their first-party data. When you run into a dealer and they say, hey, what's Full Throttle? What's your summary today based on all the noise in the marketplace and some of the breakthroughs as well?
For sure. I think the biggest real value that we're bringing to dealers and dealer groups is creating this out-of-the-box retail-ready solution that allows you to identify and build first-party audiences, activate that at an 85% plus match rate, and then measure everything with outcomes. And a lot of the work that we've done in the last couple of years is to truly make that out of the box where you can launch that within 2 or 3 weeks, right? Versus I think where a lot of dealers struggle today is there's buy-in to a lot of great value that a CDP delivers, that data integration delivers, that activation use cases deliver. But that journey to launch often can take months, if not a year. And for a lot of dealer groups, you're 20, 50, 100. I've worked with dealer groups that are 200, 300 as well that are going under the same type of initiative. And it's challenging because you can really get lost in the weeds. And if you don't start with the end and say, well, here's like the top 10 use cases that I want to do, and let's focus on solving for those use cases. Otherwise, you get trapped in the data maze of what data and what merging and what's the name and the address and like what are the business rules, and you just spend a lot of time in these weeds, and it can be very easy to get sidetracked away if you don't stay very focused on that compass of like, well, here's like the top 10, 15, 20 use cases I want to solve for.
It's such important advice, and there's wisdom in that, because I will tell you, working with dealers, oftentimes they're like, well, I want to do everything. Okay, let's back everything down into a shorter list. And so, what I try to do is say, look, give me 5 use cases for vehicle sales and 5 use cases for service. And in some cases, dealers are using some type of life cycle management for service. They do a really poor job of really the acquisition piece because they don't know when their existing customers are back shopping. And, they spend so much money on acquisition and very little on retention. Before we go into the use cases, Amol, you mentioned really having a turnkey platform, not cookie cutter, just turnkey activation.
Yeah.
Data hygiene is an important piece. So, for example, one of the dealer groups I'm working with, we had about 40% of the vehicles that were no longer owned. We had about 40% to 50% were missing mobile phone numbers. We had address standardization. We had, my name gets misspelled prophetically often as brain and brain pash, and I accept the compliment and the insight. But when you take a dealer on as a client, what type of data are you initially ingesting? Is it DMS? Is it CRM? Is it both? And what is that data, hygiene process look like for Full Throttle?
For sure. So I think the biggest source of data is DMS. The CRM is an unequal place in the land, right? So some
Yes.
do it better, some do it worse. And when you look at the size of opportunities, typically your CRM data is only a few points in comparison, like percentage points in comparison to your DMS universe. Again,
Correct.
depends on which dealership, size of dealership, et cetera. And dealer group can obviously change kind of the calculus on some of those decisions. But so we start with DMS, and we're doing. I think a lot of it is what we've learned over the last 4 or 5 years. We're one of the first ones to do it. So we learned a lot about hygiene and how you can do it differently than, hey, let's go get this identity spine. Everyone has the same 260 million amazing, identity spines out there. They're all the same. I truly believe they're a commodity at this point. And then you're going and cleaning up the data, and you're doing some appending, you're doing some enriching, you're doing all those pieces. And we do that probably like everyone else. To be honest, I think that part is kind of table stakes, as you say, right? So you have to do all of those things. And we really coalesce around household address. That's something that we've learned. There's pros and cons to it, but understanding change of address, postal address, knowing that when you buy a car, it could be in Brian's name, it could be in Brian's wife's name, right? It could be under an email address, or maybe you have a joint email address with the spouse, etc. So there's so many different points there, and we found address to be such a big focal point, not only in the bringing data together, but actually activating on a postal level besides direct mail, right? So because our incubation as Full Throttle was really within this realm of ad tech, we didn't just focus on, hey, we're going to build this CDP and all this data. We're like, we could do that, but then if we don't focus on how you're going to activate and measure, then you're going to be stuck. You're going to put yourself in a corner and be like, oh shoot, I didn't think about how to actually activate the data. Oh, I didn't actually think about how to measure the data. I would have done it totally differently if I did that. And because that's been our background from the very beginning, we had the maybe advantage of some of that perspective. So household address is also how we measure new transactions. We have our cookieless patent technology. Household address is a big way that we carry it all the way through from identify, market, measure, and back to identify.
Right. And I love the fact that you keep on going back to, hey, Brian, at the end of the day, this platform has to be able to prove itself out. It has to add business value. Just having clean data, or to say that your CDP is up to date. So when you talk to dealers and they're like, hey, I know my data's dirty. I know that if I am tracking when my customers are back on the website, there's new things I can do. I know if my vehicle ownership data is better, I can eliminate waste. One of the things that I loved, and I don't know if you want to dive into that, but I like the fact that you encourage the customers to update their own garage, and you're the only person I know really does that. And I love it because when we tested a few data hygiene partners, there was enough variation to concern me.
Yeah.
Because obviously when you're saying if customer no longer owns that vehicle, that impacts potential revenue if it's wrong.
Right.
So tell the dealers listening in that as part of your reach out activation, you try to have a conversation every month with the dealer's customers.
Yeah, right. So, and it's interesting because we've been doing this really since like 2018, 2019. And what it is zero party data, which is like, another acronym, another term for dealers to know. But it is one level beyond, because now everyone's talking about first party data. We were talking about it back in 2018, 19, but then we realized, okay, we really need to go a level beyond. And zero party data is just a fancy way to say it is customers voluntarily updating and changing their information. It could be a preference, it could be their own information, it could be I don't own this vehicle anymore, and they're doing it for a value add back. Usually there's a value exchange in why they're doing it, right? And so what we do with we do a lot of activation and measurement, like I mentioned. One of those things, one of many, is through, yes, we also have a email lifecycle system built in. You can use it, you don't have to use it. As part of that, I think what really makes it sticky is that customers in their vehicle statement and their resulting kind of little Pearl wallet that they have, they're able to update all their information, which is, hey, I sold that car, stop annoying me about it, right? Or, hey, actually, I don't have 100,000 miles on that car. I have 20,000 because there was a pandemic and I stopped driving. Or the complete opposite. I drove it, right? So it could be a number of different things. And we saw a lot of updates, over the last 3 or 4 years. And that information was way more accurate than anything else we found. And in fact, we went a step further and said, you know what? The whole 260 million identity spine that everyone buys and uses, if we have all of the answers from real people telling us what they own, what they're doing now, what the mileage is, why don't we hide the answers that we know to be true, even if there's a percentage that someone entered wrong? But that's pretty good, pretty close. And let's go to all that's basically about 5 or 6 identity providers out there, and we told them fill in the blanks of what we already know. And that was an incredibly educational exercise because I think very few people in the world are positioned to be able to do that. I mean, for the most part, you just have to trust it. You have to say, yeah, I'm working with vendor A, B, C, D, and yeah, they have a data layer, they have an identity layer, they're doing all the cleaning. But I mean, I can look at my own data, maybe a few of my staff members once it's done. That's pretty much all you truly know, right? And so we did that. And we had some really interesting results. I think the biggest takeaway I learned, Brian, is that the data was accurate up until about 5, 6 years ago. And after that, the data was much less accurate, right? So you could have, hey, what car does this person own now? If they still own this car, what is a new car that they own? And we actually supplemented the data that we had with, we have about maybe 300-400 people on staff that volunteered and gave us their current address, the last 2 addresses, the current car and the last 2 cars that they've had, and the time that they had it until. And because, they're to work for us, they gave us the right information and they were incentivized to do it. We actually gave them.
Help.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to help. So we took that information and we said, okay, well, let's see what we're getting back from the identity providers. And we found that they were right, but typically it was about the second or third car saying they still owned it, and it was roughly about 5 to 6 years ago that we found it. After that point, it started
to get cleaner.
Yeah, it wasn't getting cleaner. Everything last. So I think if you want recent data, we found that going out to the data brokers and providers of the world, it was much harder to obtain. And so we went down to 0-party data because we got to get from the customers because we tried everything on the open market and it clearly wasn't accurate. And this part is now a hypothesis because I don't know this for sure, but I believe around 5, 6 years ago is when we started the first wave of all of these privacy changes. And so the data brokers, data identity companies' ability to have updated real-time data off of data exhaust that is a business they built for 20 years. It suddenly started being shunted. So they're like, what do we do? And if you, in the last 4 or 5 years, what you've actually seen them do is they go and gobble up. They can no longer buy data because CCPA, all these things, it makes it much more difficult. So you can't buy data, but what can you do, Brian? You can buy a company. And the companies have data. So they went and they started acquiring all these companies, but they really also didn't know how recent or how old or how accurate that data was. So as a result, I think this is the world we're in. So long story of why we went through the exercise, but I think it's helpful for dealers to know the pains that we took to go through that process and then land on that customer provided data is actually very powerful. Most dealers will say to me, come on, I can't get customers to do anything. Why would they give you their data? And honestly, it is a great question. I didn't think it would work, but overwhelmingly, there are so many updates that customers give. The main thing, and again, this is now a hypothesis world again, the only thing that I think really drives customers to do it is because they know if they unsubscribe, that's not going to work. Somewhere, there's so many vendors, they're going to keep getting emails. It's like, if I can get off this marketing or email list, at the very least, I can give them the right information, and then maybe I'll at least get the right information when I'm getting it. And I think that we've seen that being a big, pattern driving results back to us.
Yeah, and in regards to zero-party data, I want dealers to start looking for a couple things. Next time you log into a website that you do business with a lot, start watching them popping up and asking you one question, just one question. Hey, are you going to be traveling anytime soon? Or, hey, are you looking for a car? Or, hey, little questions. What's happening is more and more retailers who are using a CDP, to Amal's point, have realized if every time I log in, I can ask one little general question to help clean up my marketing, my audience development. So start to look for it, because we're going to be testing this idea on a couple clients. Because as Amal said, it's absolutely, if there's an exchange of value or nothing harmful about it, your customers who like doing business with you,
Right. Exactly.
or is the best place. So Amal, let's talk about use cases.
Yeah.
I've been fascinated in this past few months looking at the form completion rates on tools like digital retailing, trade, and service. And one very popular service scheduler has about 35% form completion rate. That means 65% of the people who start it don't finish it. Amal, use case for service. When an existing customer is on the website, starts to do the service scheduler and doesn't finish it, your tech can advise the dealer, hey, one of your valuable customers tried to do service, didn't complete it. To me, that's like an amazing customer service opportunity. It's a great defection prevention, and it's an immediate revenue gen. This idea of outside of automotive, abandoned shopping cart marketing is a science, right? You leave something in your cart, you get a coupon for 10% off within minutes sometimes, right? This is perfected to a science. What are you doing with your clients that's helping them either get insights when customers abandon, or in general, when customers are out shopping, to give them some immediate ROI by providing them more sales opportunities that are not in a traditional lead?
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple different things that we're doing. I love that use case. I think that's a great one. Forms, technology flow is always difficult. So the more you can really be a helpful concierge to the right person to assist them through it, that's a much better customer experience. Like, yeah, I filled it out. It's so painful. Then someone called me, and then I just had to speak into a phone about what I wanted to do. That's actually easier, love it or hate it. It's easier for someone to call you, tell them what you want to do, versus even trying to call the dealership. Often you're in the call tracking, lane one, call tracking lane two, then it gets to a service person, then it rings, sometimes it goes to voicemail. Very, very difficult, right? So like the outbound to abandoned, I think is a great idea.
Yes.
And I think, well, it reflects the trend that we've probably seen for some time now across digital retailing and technology, that a lot of customers, not all, but a lot of customers want this hybrid of a concierge type of service with technology, and it's really the combination that gets them, to the finish line. So that's one place where technology can help to really identify, service abandoners. We can identify also using all the DMS data and all the CDP data that we compiled together to say, hey, who's ready to come back into service? Who can we conquest back in? Who's defected? Who's recently lost? And then the ability to actually do that from an ad tech and media perspective is one of our biggest value adds, because the truth is there's many tools out there that facilitate your kind of one-to-one CRM type of workflow. Hey, this person abandoned service, so let me call them. And now you have this kind of workflow type application, whether it's a CRM type flow, whether it's an equity mining type flow. And so you have a lot of software out there that for years was a one-to-one tool, right? Whether you're one-to-one emailing, one-to-one calling. And so a lot of what dealers will find is those vendors have adapted the one-to-one nature of their software into some of these really creative use cases with technology bolted on. And I think that is also great. We do some of those things as well, but where we really thrive is in a place where no one else is. And where no one
Well,
else is
preach
exactly,
it.
yeah, exactly, which is around using traditional media and finding big ways that you can reach the right people on every device that they're on and immerse them with the right message that you want to message them on. But it's still very strategically data oriented. So you could, for example, you could take all of the people that you want to fill your service drive with, and we actually have generative AI in our platform, which is, hey, I want to fill my service drive again because it doesn't have enough people in it. And the system will actually curate all of the service data. And yes, it's going to look at the obvious things like recently lost and defected and never serviced. It's going to rank each one of those things and cobble together this list of basically about 3 to 5,000, right? Let's just take that as an example. And then it's going to allow you to say, well, I want to run a data-informed linear campaign on traditional TV using that data, or I want to run a podcast and audio campaign using that data, right? And you can then mix in other data. So, well, how many out of that audience? What are all the people that are on the website and looked at the service form but didn't service, right? So now you can add those and get this really kind of juicy audience, but then say, yeah, I could send that into Facebook and Google, which is like probably what I've been doing with everything for the last 5, 10 years. And, if I spend more money on Facebook and Google, am I really going to get that much incrementality to my dealership? Answer is probably no. So we went away from them. We went to where people actually are, which is they're listening to audio, they're watching TV, whether it's
Yeah.
CTV or online video. So that's really where we say, hey, we do that. And we've built these deep partnerships with media companies like Comcast and Spectrum and iHeartMedia and Cox and say, hey, how do we then also close the loop and say, what data can you send back to us using integrations like BlockGraph that allow us to actually get data back to us and say, well, now we have a directional, type of information that shows us here's how much incrementality, here's how much that drove sales. And that's actually our second patent. Our second patent that we got at the beginning of this year is our ability to tie traditional linear streaming or audio broadcast and streaming all the way to traffic and then all the way down to transaction.
Yeah, and some dealers likely got lost in that connection because you and I just I know, but let me set the context. Full Throttle was the really first to engage with the media companies because I was involved with Spectrum specifically and encouraging them to. I want the dealers to understand the people that come to your website, the patent that Full Throttle has identifies which of those households are on the website. And this is so important because dealers have, and I'm not knocking anything, they can go to Experian or Equifax or Axiom and buy in-market shopper lists. You can go to Google and Facebook in-market shopper lists. You have no idea how these lists were built. You just trust them. But dealers get 10s or 20s or 30,000 visits a month to their website. Full Throttle's identifying which homes were on the website.
Yep.
Think about retargeting on steroids, because the problem with retargeting is you have to trust the walled gardens are doing the right thing. This is the problem. But with Full Throttle's patented technology, they're saying these are the homes that visited your website. Now, I'm going to take those home addresses in a privacy compliant way, match them up with Spectrum or Comcast, and I'm going to deliver my message into just those homes because I have the best chance of reaching those people. They already know my brand. They've already been on my website. And then what you get back is, hey, these homes were delivered. There was a TV on and the ads were delivered, which then you can say, okay, of those people, what percentage of the ads were delivered into those homes, and then match back to DMS. That's your amazing, connectivity. Dealers for years have been trying to figure out how to match back linear.
Yep.
Or now with streaming, and there's so many variations of streaming, it's mind-blowing. But I want dealers to understand the cable, the internet into every home, regardless of all the devices that are there, are mapped to a household address. and people live in a household. So if you have multiple people in that house shopping or one person, the ad's going to be delivered into the house or on the devices that some of them who have like the Spectrum mobile app or other like the Xfinity app. I mean, Xfinity knows who those people are and where they live.
Right.
So it's extremely efficient. And I always liked the way you guys were thinking is like, hey, Brian, everyone's fishing in the Google search pool and the retargeting pool and the display pool and the VLA pool. And those things all have a function.
They do. They have value for sure. For sure.
Yeah. But why buy audiences when you can build your own based
Right.
on the people who come to your website? Dealers never had a tool. They said, oh, I only get 1 to 2% conversion, and I 4 to 8% phone calls, and man, all these people are coming to my website. You're saying, hey, no, don't worry, we're going to activate those individuals by mapping them to their households and deliver media into their home.
Yeah.
And there's no waste there, right? Because they've already, you don't have to model who's in market. They were on your stupid website. You know what I mean? Like,
Right, exactly. So it's not the spray and pray, of really the last 20 years when it comes or more, right? When it comes to traditional media. Or, I don't want to imply it's all spray and pray. Maybe we're using some kind of like RDR poke type of data or saying, hey, these are the zip codes where I want more, and they map to this DMA and therefore I'm buying. But it was still, it wasn't audience focused, it was like geographic focused. And so it could have been data informed that way. Yeah, so now you're able to do that. And I think really two interesting things that we found make a difference. One is that you can actually immerse the household in this kind of very simultaneous fashion. So imagine that it's literally ads on the TV in your living room. It's going to the ads on the podcast that you're listening to. You got a direct mail piece that's sitting on your table, right? And so, I mean, we talk about reach and frequency. Every time you walk by the dining room and you got your piece there, right? You're increasing your frequency there. But it's really doing all of those things. And when our attribution reporting on things like linear media or broadcast radio and even streaming versions of that, the most interesting thing that we found was what we call the halo effect. And we looked at how much was Google and Facebook interactivity going up directly as a result of actually this other media. And we found that actually that was one of the spending more on Facebook didn't always get you more results, but spending more on awareness so that you were more likely to click on the Facebook ad.
Yep.
Actually, but in the last 20 years, you could never measure that. And so as a result, your budget leaned into things only that which you could measure because you're a director of marketing, you're a CMO, etc.
You're held accountable. Like, where's my leads?
Exactly. So you ended up going into these things which were actually not the best place for marketing investment. It wasn't the right marketing mix. And so this halo effect actually shows that, what, you could spend another 10 grand on paid search, or if you put in awareness, wait, your paid search interactivity, the people who clicked on a paid search ad and then purchased, because we're following it all the way through, that actually went up. So your calculus now starts to change, and now you have this ability to create relevancy in these traditional media formats, which have massive consumption. There's people there, but they've been struggling to create relevancy in the light of Facebook and Google. So now people, I'm not going to use the word game changer because everyone uses that phrase, but I do believe in this new world, you have a better ability to think about strategic use of ad budget that helps you create results all the way down to transactional outcomes.
And this is why I'm so excited about the growing awareness of CDPs, the companies refining their value proposition, their use cases. It comes down to this. Many years ago, people said, hey, I can put a pixel on your website and I can de-anonymize these people and I'll email you a list and you can call these people, right? Identity resolution early on, it was around, but it was never coupled with a data platform and an activation platform. It just gave dealers a list of
leads.
Like, hey, this
Yeah.
person was on your website, call them. What were they doing? I don't know. They were just on the website. We reversed, look up them, what dealers I want to focus on today's call is, look, you've been bitching that you're not getting enough leads from your website, and that's because human nature is they already know your game, and leads will come if there's a value exchange. But if your tools are difficult to use, expect that your form completion rates are going to be somewhere between 20 and 40%, which means more than half of the people who wanted information from you are not playing by the framework you've presented. So you were disgruntled. What Full Throttle is offering is, look, let me identify the households that are coming to your website. And I can even tell you if these households were looking at service pages or new car pages or used car pages, but I know who they are. So let's use technology to deliver media into just their homes, not a zip code ring,
Yep.
knowing that only probably 3% of the marketplace is the zip codes are actually shopping for vehicles. So instead of trusting a third-party list or trusting a direct mail company or trusting an email company who says they're going to send out thousands of emails, why not use your website as the ultimate flypaper? There's a lot of opportunities. And for most dealers, I talk to them all, and I did this on the roadshow this summer. I
Yeah.
said, what percentage more sales opportunities would it have taken you to hit your sales goals? And some people say, if I had 10% more leads, another person said 20%, one person or two said 25, 30. And I said, so that's table stakes. I said, you invest in a customer data platform with identity resolution,
Yeah.
getting 30% more sales opportunity a month. That's nothing.
Right.
And their eyes opened up. And I'm saying, I'm not talking about some unknown list. I'm saying the people who are on your website that live in your community, you don't know who they are. Let's be smarter about it. And the light bulbs went off. It's like, wow, okay, so what audiences should I create? What messages? I said, well, that's the art form where you have to partner with somebody, because the audiences, right, goes to use cases. What's the most reasonable use cases that have enough people in the audience that I can do a direct mail piece or an email campaign? And this is why it comes full circle. I just want dealers to realize, if they're saying, hey, if I just had 10%, 20%, 30% more sales opportunities, I would be happier. It's like, great, the data's here, the technology is here. And by the way, it's cheaper, more effective, and eliminates waste.
Yeah.
Okay, raise your hand. Am I far from that, Amal, and just saying, hey, the answer is close to your own website. You just didn't have the tech to do anything with it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, dealers say there's thousands of visitors on the website, which, there's bots and there's things, so it may not be always 10,000s, but there's certainly at least 30% more leads and sales opportunities. Let's call it sales opportunities that could be garnered from your website with people that are abandoning. They're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. I don't know if I want to do it. Right. Or they're going to your competitor's website. And so they're just kind of browsing, and you didn't do a good enough job because you're like, oh, well, once they're on the website, I'm not, they'll convert eventually, which I mean, just isn't true. Right. The time it has taken for people to buy a car has doubled, since the pandemic. People are taking longer to buy. They're spending more time researching. Even after they submit a lead, even after they come in and test drive, it's not always closing, right? People are spending more time shopping, unless you need a car, which is a different kind of scenario. Well, altogether, right? But those that are shopping, they're looking for new, and for dollar dealers, franchise dealers, they're focusing on new vehicle sales. There is such a great opportunity to use data, to use AI, to be able to bring them in. And the only other thing I'll add there, Brian, because I think you nailed the opportunity from a lot of this first party data on your website, is that no human could take this list of 5,000 leads that gets dumped somewhere, right, and say, well, which one of them has a car in the DMS and also has serviced another car at one of my sister stores within my group. And so for you to find all that information out, is one huge step. But then after you find it out, what do you do? On a one-to-one, maybe it'll change how you talk to that person. But what we've done over the last couple of years is we've built in that propensity. So if you have a $5,000 media budget where you're targeting people, the AI knows that, hey, if this person has previously purchased or serviced, right, then here's the likelihood that they're going to do it based on all their activity and maybe other
Yep.
activity in the household. So like no human can one-to-one think about those things and appropriately weight budget towards this person or that person. And those decisions are happening in milliseconds, which is hard. It's hard to fathom. I think as a dealer, for me, I'm an ad tech. I get it. I built it, right? But like if you're not in that, it's hard to fathom the amount of value that you can unlock. And once you understand this piece though, Brian, which is great to do these podcasts with you, because then dealers understand it. And then the line from where they are now to 15 to 30% more sales opportunities feels so much more achievable than before.
Yeah. And that's why we're doing these podcasts, is because we're assembling the brightest minds, the latest tech, and sharing the latest strategies to help dealers with their retailing operations. And that's at the Modern Retailing Conference, November 17th, 18th, 19th. And we're so blessed to have Full Throttle AI as part of our speaking and supporting of dealer education. And I just want to say one thing. For many dealers, the economy is challenging, and you got vehicles to move and less net or losses. This is the conference to come out to actually talk with the people who can help. Not pie in the sky, not, hey, just start a BDC and all your problems are going to go away. No, the latest in modern retailing technology, sales process, service process, all going to be here. And you're going to be meeting with the senior leaders. That's even more important. So you can sit down with coffee, eat lunch, or go out to dinner together and talk about your specific needs. So I want to encourage dealer principals, marketing managers, technology officers in larger dealer groups, come on out and expect to be challenged. The conference sells out every year. So go to modernretailingconference.com and book your tickets and the hotel. Amol, it's at the beautiful O Hotel. You know it well.
Yeah.
Are you looking for a little nice warm weather in November in sunny South Florida?
Yeah, I can't wait. It's going to be amazing. And the hotel is beautiful. The area is beautiful and the people are great. So I'm looking forward.
Well, I want to thank you once again for taking time and just sharing your passion for helping dealers activating their first-party data and now introducing new practical ways to get zero-party data in to clean and update customer records to provide a more relevant marketing message. And if this is the first time you're listening to one of our podcasts, you should know that there's dozens of interviews with industry leaders, disruptors, and well, people who are working to make retail work better for the dealer and for the customer. And this is part of the road to the Modern Retailing Conference. There'll be about 25 interviews with the thought leaders that will be there in November. So take some time, just search for the Brian Pash podcast and just take a look at all the new interviews that we're doing that will supplement your knowledge, challenge you to think differently, and then also encourage you to come out and meet with Amol and his team and the other great leaders. So Amol, thank you. Thanks for your vision, your inspiration. Thanks for cool tech. And David Wren and Todd Hauser, I miss them. I hope they're coming out to Palm Beach in the fall. And for everyone who's watching, thanks for your time. Share this podcast with your friends, especially those who are looking for a competitive edge in the marketplace. And I'll see you next time on another podcast interview.